Can you believe that the next time I make a pick'em video, it's going to be 2024? Man, did this year just buzz by without us even realizing it. What is good, everybody? I am Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram, link in the box below. Week number 17. We got 2 more weeks to go left in pick'em. Strong week for me as I finished 10-6, 154-86 on the season as I look to wrap up a playoff spot in the tournament. There are a couple of other clinching scenarios, but I'm not going to really get into that right now. Just follow the standings on Instagram. You know, I post them every week. But yeah, week 17, we got some tough ones to come up with, and I am not going to waste any time and just get right into it. These are my week 17 picks of the 2023-24 NFL season. Let's get on to it. The final Thursday night game of the season. It is between the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, as the Jets are coming off a win over Washington on Christmas Eve, a game in which the Jets nearly blew a big lead against Washington, but they came away with the win nonetheless, and they are going up against the Browns, who are playing very good football with Joe Flacco, with the offense they got, and especially the defense they got right there. And to keep it short, sweet, to the point, right off the bat, this is my lock of the week. The Jets, their offense outside of that game against Washington has just been dry all season. The Browns have been nearly perfect at home, except for the Ravens game that they played them at home at the beginning of the season. And Cleveland's defense, I think they're just going to have a field day as they look for 2 things: getting closer to a playoff spot, and if Cleveland does win this game, guess what, Steeler fans? This will be the first time since 1989 that the Browns will finish above the Steelers in the standings. So, the Browns, they are playing for those 2 things right there. They do have a very small chance at clinching the number 1 seed, but I don't think it's going to happen. Regardless, I got Cleveland winning this one pretty easily. Next, we got a Saturday game. One Saturday game this week, as it's my game of the week. I think it's going to be a very good game. The Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys going at it in Jerry World. Like I said, this is actually my game of the week. I know there's another matchup here that everyone else is saying it's their game of the week, but I think this one one-ups it, honestly. The Lions, they did something on Sunday that they haven't done since 1993. And that's clinch a division title. So, hey, I said at the beginning of the year the Lions would win the NFC North, and they wrapped it up on Sunday with the win over the Vikings. So, congratulations, Detroit. You battled hard all season. You played very well. Dan Campbell is a hell of a coach. I'm very happy for the Lions. They are going to make some noise in the playoffs, man. Those long-suffering fans up there in Detroit, they deserve it all. So that's the Lions right there. The Cowboys, 2 straight losses for them as they got roundhouse kicked by Buffalo a few weeks ago, and they lose a tight one to the Miami Dolphins on Christmas Eve. All of a sudden, the Cowboys are sitting at 10-5. They're still in great shape to make the playoffs, and I think that's what Dallas is battling for in this matchup right here. But it seems like the narratives are starting to come back with the Cowboys as they played the meat of their schedule, and they have now dropped 2 straight games to not only AFC East teams, but AFC East teams that will most likely be playing January football. As I really don't know what to make of this game. I feel like I'm walking into a trap and walking into an L with this matchup right here. But the thing is, the Lions, I don't really think they have anything to play for at this point anymore, because I don't really know if they're still capable of clinching the number 1 seed. I know they have the same record as the 49ers, but I think San Francisco holds the tiebreaker over them. I could be wrong on that, but the Lions, they're at the point now to where they can afford to drop a couple of games. The Cowboys are in desperation mode, and plus, the Cowboys are at home again. They have been dominant at home. They've scored at least 30 points in all their home games this season. The Lions, sure, they won, but they had a little trouble putting away Minnesota. That's a little bit of a concern right there. The Lions, I mean, yeah, like I said, they had a phenomenal season, but, like, there have been times where the Lions have struggled, and I think going up against the defense the Cowboys have and the firepower that Dallas is capable of with offense, I don't know. This is a game where I'm unsure of who to pick, so I'm actually going to go Dallas here. I just think that they're more in desperation mode. And like I said, Detroit's at the point to where they can afford to drop a game or two to close out the season. Not that I think Detroit won't try, but I just think Dallas is just going to outplay them in this one. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win a really good game over the Lions in my game of the week for week 17. And then the rest of these games are on Sunday. We got no Monday night game this week. I think the Ravens and 49ers was the last Monday night game of the season, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, rest of these games are on Sunday. First at bat, we got the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills for the early Sunday games. The Patriots went into Mile High and upset the Broncos, put a major damper on Denver's playoff hopes. They led 23-7 at one point. Denver came roaring back to eventually tie the game in the fourth quarter. And then the Patriots hit a game-winning field goal as time expired. And the Pats, they get their fourth win of the year, which pretty much means they're most likely not going to get Caleb Williams. They kind of soiled their hopes with that right there. But then you got the Buffalo Bills. Last time these two teams played, the Patriots actually knocked off the Bills on a last-second touchdown. And the Bills ever since then have been a very interesting group. They slumped at the middle of the season, but ever since they got rid of their OC, and honestly, ever since they came off their bye, the Bills have been playing a lot better football lately. And it showed as the Bills did have trouble against the Chargers, but they still got the job done in LA. But at this point of the season, when you're in win now mode, you need to stack up as much wins as possible, especially when you're battling for a playoff spot. So I really don't think Buffalo's too concerned about that. Although I do think New England's defense can cause them a little bit of trouble, but I really don't know if it's sustainable because we have seen in the past that Josh Allen is capable of figuring out that Patriots defense. I think Buffalo being 11.5-point favorites may be too much for them. So people that want to probably take New England with the points, I actually understand that. But I'm going to roll with Buffalo on this one. I think they're just going to want to knock the Patriots aside, get that much closer to a playoff spot if they haven't done it already. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to get the job done over New England. Then we got my toilet bowl of the week. It is between the Atlanta Falcons and the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field, as the Falcons are coming off a surprising dominant win over the Colts 29-10, as they put a little bit of a concern with the Colts as far as their playoff hopes go. This matchup here, I really don't think it's going to be a terrible matchup, but it's kind of my toilet bowl of the week by default because it's the least appealing matchup here. But still, I mean, Atlanta's a defensive-dominated team. There have been seasons where the Falcons have racked up on wins at season's end where they're pretty much eliminated from playoff contention. But you also got to take a look at the Chicago Bears. They got the job done over Arizona on Christmas Eve. As Justin Fields, I'll give him credit. He has been balling out lately. He's been playing much better, and the Bears' defense has really stepped up as well. So Chicago, they got a couple of things going for them in this matchup here. And plus, Atlanta, they are notorious for playing really bad on the road. I think those factors weigh in as I'm going to roll with the Chicago Bears to actually get the job done over the Falcons and, just pick up on wins, get some good capital, because I do think Chicago does have the first overall pick. While Atlanta, I mean, they're done. I'm going to go with the Bears to get the job done over Atlanta. Next up, very interesting game here in my opinion. We got the Raiders and the Colts in Indianapolis, as the Raiders are coming off a stunning win over the Chiefs at Arrowhead on Christmas Day, 20-14. They ran all over the Chiefs, and honestly, this Raider team looks way different and honestly better with Antonio Pierce. I think Antonio Pierce has earned himself to be head coach of the Raiders for 2024. This Raider team has a lot more chemistry. They play with a lot more heart. The defense has stepped up. And even though Aiden O'Connell only had 62 yards passing against Kansas City, even with Josh Jacobs out, White had the bulk with the run game for the Raiders, as they just play with a lot of heart. Now, they can still mathematically win the AFC West. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not, let's be honest. But if you're a Raider fan, you probably do have a lot to look forward for the upcoming years. Indianapolis Colts, they were red hot coming into last week's game against the Falcons. Then they drop a really big one to Atlanta, and the Colts are still in the playoff picture, and they would be in the playoffs if they began today. But if I'm a Colts fan, I'd be a little concerned coming off that performance right there. Indy, I still think that their offense is more than capable of stepping up to the reins, and I think their defense is good enough. But guys, I am actually making this my upset of the week. Why's that? Indy's rush defense is inconsistent. Shane Steichen has done a really good job with the offense for the Colts, but the Colts defense, like I said, they're very suspect against the run. You know, there were times in even our matchup against the Colts a few weeks ago where they could not stop Jaylen Warren. And the only reason that they probably couldn't is because George Pickens decided to be a little pussy and not block for him. But still, Indy has had trouble with the run. And I think if Josh Jacobs plays in this game for Vegas, I think that's going to be a very big difference maker in this matchup right here. So honestly, guys, this is my upset of the week. I think the Raiders are in desperation mode, and the Colts, you know, they're kind of feeling a little weary after that loss to Atlanta. I'm going Vegas to pull off the upset over the Colts. Then we got the Los Angeles Rams and the New York Giants going at it at MetLife. The Rams are in good position to sneak up on a wild card spot in the NFC. I think they're actually the second wild card spot as I'm recording this video. I'll probably have to look at that. But any way you look at it, the Rams, they're in good position to make the playoffs, as this was a Rams team I thought was going to be duking it out for a top 5 pick in the draft. But Matthew Stafford's been playing incredibly well. Cooper Kupp has been playing incredibly well. Puka Nacua has been a phenomenal story this year. Rams defense has stepped up outside of a couple of games, and they got the job done rather handily over the Saints. The Saints just got a couple of garbage time touchdowns. I think the Rams can be a tough out in the playoffs if they make it in there. The Giants, Tommy DeVito benched again. Jacoby Brissett comes in Christmas Day against the Eagles. And to the Giants' credit, the defense did have a couple of shining moments, like the pick six they had on Jalen Hurts. And the Giants, they held their own against Philly, only losing by 8 points. But honestly, I really don't know if that's going to hold up in this one, because I think the Rams are just a completely different team going into this one. I like LA in this matchup. I think they're going to keep their foot on the pedal to get closer to a playoff spot, and I really don't know about Jacoby Brissett carrying the load for the Giants in this one. But I am going to go with the Rams to get the job done over New York. Then we got the Arizona Cardinals and the Philadelphia Eagles going at it in Philly, as the Cardinals coming off a loss to the Bears in Chicago, and their season is pretty much done. I mean, they got the second overall pick currently right now. So I think Arizona, they're just, throwing these games away to just get better draft position. They lose another road game. I guess the good news for them is that they end the year off at home, if I'm not mistaken. But going into Philly, playing a still incredibly pissed off Eagle team who got the job done over the Giants, not in dominant fashion. I think this is going to be one of the easier picks of the week. I'm going to go Philly pretty handily here over the Cardinals. The Eagles, they're still in the race for that number one seed in the NFC, although the 49ers do have the tiebreaker over them. I think Philly can wrap up the East with a win and a Cowboys loss, if I'm not mistaken. And that would make Philly the first NFC East repeat winner since they did it in 03 and 04. So I think Philly looks to break the cycle of the NFC East winner. I'm going to go Philly to get the job done over the Cardinals here. Welcome to my trap game of the week. We got the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going at it in Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. The Saints coming off a Thursday loss to the Rams, while the Bucs are coming off a dominant win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. As Baker Mayfield, he might be playing for that long-term contract. There has been speculation that the Bucs could make Baker Mayfield their starter long-term, as I think he deserves it. He's put together a really solid season, and the Bucs are in prime position to pretty much wrap up the NFC South, and it would actually be deserved. Tampa Bay has looked a lot better lately since they have been hot and cold all season. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of people might be going Tampa Bay for this one, but that's why it's my trap game of the week. The Bucs have been inconsistent this season, and the New Orleans Saints, they've been inconsistent as well, especially with the defense, which has been a letdown for me because I figured New Orleans would have a top 10 defense. But here's why I say it's my trap game. If you've been following my channel all season and my picks all season, I failed to say this with the Rams too, but I'm going to say it now with the Saints since that's the team the Rams played. I generally tend to favor the team that played on Thursday. And the Saints, even though they took a bad loss to the Rams and they remain on the road, I really don't see how an NFC South team can complete the sweep of another, unless I guess it's the Saints and the Panthers, maybe even Tampa and Carolina. But yeah, I think Tampa falls for the trap here, and this was really close to being my upset of the week, so I made a compromise. Okay, Vegas and the Colts was my upset. This is my trap game. I think the Saints defense steps up here. I think they're going to be I think they're going to have a decent amount of rest. They got the 3 extra days of rest. I think New Orleans offense can come alive in this one. And I just really think the Bucs are going to underestimate the Saints because they had to go up against Jacksonville pretty much without Trevor Lawrence. And if they did, it was Trevor Lawrence not at 100%. Now they're going up against a fully rested Saints team. I'm going with the New Orleans Saints to get the job done over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in my trap game of the week. Another easy one right here. We got the 49ers at the Redskins in Washington, D.C. And again, I'm keeping it short. I'm going San Francisco here. They got clobbered at home by the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas night. Brock Purdy easily had the worst game of his career so far, throwing 4 picks. Sam Darnold came in and threw a 5th in garbage time. Brock Purdy did get roughed up a little bit, but I think he should be good to go in this one. Regardless of what strength he is, Washington is just a terrible team. They've been punting the season for a week. I would even go as far as say about a month and a half now, pretty much ever since the deadline. And this is my spread of the week. I just want some more points in my tournament here. I think San Francisco easily covers the 13.5 that they're favored by. Give me San Francisco all the way. 45-7 is my prediction for this one. Niners take this one, no problem, over Washington. Then we got another game that I'm honestly worried about getting wrong. We got the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars going at it in Jacksonville. Why do I say I'm worried about this one getting wrong? Because on first glance, it's like, oh, Carolina stinks. You know, they're the worst team in the NFL. And Jacksonville, they're going to have Trevor Lawrence back, right? I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is going to come back because he's listed as uncertain in this game because in that game against Tampa Bay, suffered an AC sprain. And I really don't know if he's fully to go with that concussion problem that he's had. Trevor Lawrence turned the ball over quite a bit against Tampa Bay. He threw a couple of picks against the Bucs, and he also had a lost fumble. So the Jags also have dropped 4 straight games, and they are losing at the wrong time right now. The Jags looked like they would run away with the AFC South, now looking like they could potentially miss the playoffs with Indianapolis being on the streak that they were, and I think that they're going to be duking it out as best they can, even though Jacksonville did sweep the Colts. And now they got Houston right up on their heels as well. The Jaguars have went from pretty much looking like a lock in the AFC South, and now it's like they could miss the playoffs. They really could. I think they'll be back in the playoffs. I think that they'll make it. But in order for them to win this game, and I think they will win this game regardless of what Trevor Lawrence's status is, but I would not take Carolina lightly in this game. I could honestly see Carolina pulling off the upset. But I think Travis Etienne has to be the bulk of Jacksonville's offense in this game. And I think for them to have a chance, if Trevor Lawrence cannot play in this game and they got to go with C.J. Beathard again, they just got to utilize that run game because Carolina's run defense has been deplorable all season. So I'm keeping an eye on this one, as I do think Carolina low-key has a chance at upsetting Jacksonville and dropping them to their 5th in a row. Kind of like a reversal last year with Jacksonville, it's looking like right now. But I'm going to go with Jacksonville to snap their losing streak, get back on the right track, and get closer to clinching a playoff spot in the AFC. So give me Jacksonville here. All right, this one I know is everybody's game of the week, but I said earlier that Lions-Cowboys just one upset for me, simply because A, it's a primetime game, and B, the Lions have already solidified their playoff spot, and the Cowboys are, they're in the same realm, looking to clinch that playoff spot as well. But this is by no means a slacker. We got the Dolphins and the Ravens. Both these teams are in the playoffs, as this is a matchup for essentially the number 1 seed in the AFC. Miami wins this game. I don't know if they officially clinched the first seed, but they would have it going into week 18. I know that. As Ravens win, they clinch the number 1 seed throughout the AFC. And, well, we all know what happened the last time the Ravens had the number 1 seed in the AFC. Hope to God it happens again. But anyway, this is going to be a fantastic game. Dolphins are coming off a win over the Dallas Cowboys on Christmas Eve. As the defense stepped up, they forced a fumble on Dak Prescott, and the Dolphins offense did what they could in a 22-20 victory over the Cowboys, while the Ravens went to San Francisco and they just cleaned the 49ers clocks 33-19. Fell behind early on, but the Ravens, their defense just bullied the 49ers offense all night. But some areas of concern for this one. For the Dolphins, Jalen Waddle has an AC sprain, and he is unlikely to play in this game. And I don't know the status of Kyle Hamilton for the Ravens because I know that he got shaken up a little bit, but I really don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference because even though Miami, they did beat a good team, and we all know we love saying that, oh, the Dolphins, they can't beat anybody good. The Cowboys are no slackers. They're a really solid team. But Miami did have to play catch-up in that game against the Dallas Cowboys. And now they're going up against the number 2 defense in the league that's very opportunistic with turnovers, and they're physical up front. Ravens lead the league in sacks, and they're really gonna rough up Tua Tagovailoa in this one. I think the Dolphins, Miami doesn't really strike me as a team that runs the ball consistently, even though Raheem Mostert has been a really good X factor. But in order to beat the Ravens, you got to put them in a deficit to where you have to force Lamar to throw the ball, and you have to force Lamar to be that guy that can carry Baltimore back from a deficit. And Lamar really just is not that type of quarterback, because if the Ravens go ahead early, you're done. Miami's probably not going to come back from that one. I mean, there have been games where the Ravens have, been really questionable as far as the defensive side of the ball goes. And Miami does have a very underrated defense. So, yeah, like I said, Miami has to be just as physical, if not more physical, than Baltimore in this game in order for them to go into Baltimore and, basically steal the number one seed away from the Ravens. But in this one, hate to say it, I have to go with the Ravens on this one. What they've done this season is nothing short of amazing. They've dominated these teams. They just got another dominant one. And I think Baltimore's just going to carry that momentum, and it's going to clinch them the number one seed in the AFC. And they do clinch the North with a win in this one. Ravens just want it all, man. While Miami, I really don't know if I can fully trust them to win a game of this magnitude yet, seeing that they had to play catch-up against Dallas. If Miami does win this game, then I will officially say that the Dolphins are the best team in the AFC. But as a Steeler fan, I just hate to sit here and face facts, and that is that the Ravens are the best team in the AFC. So I'm going to go with the Ravens to get the job done over the Miami Dolphins, even though I'm pulling heavily for Miami in this matchup here. Next, we got the Titans and the Texans down in Houston as these two teams played each other a couple weeks ago, actually, and the Texans narrowly won in overtime against them. And it's looking like it's not going to be any different, as C.J. Stroud did not clear concussion protocol against the Browns. So I guess they're going to have to try it again. But if he doesn't, you're potentially looking at Ryan Tannehill against Davis Mills in this one, as Case Keenum got benched against the Browns. So that's your potential QB matchup in this one. The Titans, there have been times this season where they have fought hard, and honestly, Tennessee should have a lot more than 5 wins, in my opinion. But, the Titans, they just cannot find that way to win. They rely too heavily on Derrick Henry, who's getting older, and, running back shelf lives are rapidly diminishing throughout the league. Houston's rush defense, I think, has stepped it up over the past couple weeks. And I really don't care who Houston starts in this game. I think I'm going to roll with them regardless to complete the sweep of Tennessee, because the Texans smell blood. The Jaguars are struggling. Indianapolis had a bad loss. And if I'm not mistaken, the Texans and they already played twice. But you get what I'm trying to say. The Texans I was going to say the Texans and the Jags play in Week 18. But the Texans do play the Colts in Week 18 for their second matchup. So like I said, Houston smells blood. They want to steal away that AFC South, and I think that they're going to get the job done over Tennessee here. The Texans are starting to remind me of last year's Jaguars, man. Just a really wonderful surprise team that came out of nowhere that no one expected to be good. So I'm going to take Houston to get the job done over Tennessee, just because it's Ryan Tannehill potentially. The musical chairs at QB for the Titans just continues. I think Tennessee, they're looking at a situation where they got to, blow it all up and start a rebuild, but I'm going to go Houston here. Now, we got my matchup here. Rematch of Super Bowl 40. One of my finest moments as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. We got the Steelers and the Seahawks in Seattle. Y'all know the story with us. Mason Rudolph comes in, saves Christmas for the Steelers as he throws for 290 yards, couple of touchdown passes, both of them to George Pickens, and they were both long touchdowns. They weren't just like dinks and dunks where Pickens had to fight off receivers. They were long touchdowns. An 85-yard touchdown reception on a slant on the second play of the game for the Steelers. And then a 67-yard touchdown strike to Pickens where he roasted Cincinnati's defense. The only bad play of the game that the Steelers had all night defensively was when they gave up the touchdown to T. Higgins. But that was it. The Steelers had a phenomenal game against the Bengals. And yes, believe it or not, the Steelers are still alive in the playoff hunt. Even though I still stand by my statement, this team does not deserve the playoffs with all the games that they've blown this season and just being outcoached, just being very unprepared and very undisciplined. But, they're one win away from that elusive 9-win season for Mike Tomlin once again. So that's the storyline with us. As for the Seahawks, they've been very up and down this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So if Mason Rudolph is to officially show Steeler Nation and Mike Tomlin, knock on wood, Mason does start in this game, Tomlin, because it's the right answer. Anyway, if Mason Rudolph is to prove to us once and for all that he is the quarterback going forward potentially for the Steelers, he has to ball out in this one too, because the Seahawks, there are moments where their defense looks good, but there's also the majority of the time where their defense, it just gets destroyed left and right. And I think with the Steelers being able to run the ball efficiently and with Pittsburgh's defense just being more trustworthy, in my opinion, than Seattle, even though we are dealing with a laundry list of injuries defensively, you got some things favoring the Steelers in this matchup. But then you got to take a look at the Seahawks. Because our defense is banged up, because we don't know who's going to be in this game or not, and because Pete Carroll has worked so well with Geno Smith and now I would say Drew Lock at this point, those are just big takeaways for the Seahawks right there. I really don't know. I think Kenneth Walker has to be a really good X factor for Seattle in this game, because in order to beat this defense, you just got to pound the ball down our throats. So I think Seattle's run game really needs to step up in this one. So sorry guys, but I'm going to go with the Seahawks on this one. I just don't feel confident. For once, I actually think the offense is going to keep us alive in this game. But in typical Steeler fashion, we can just never be a two-dimensional team. I actually think the offense can keep us in this game, but the defense is just going to not be at 100%, and they're going to give up they're going to give up the game-losing touchdown, and I think Seattle gets the job done. The Seahawks are battling for a playoff spot. The Steelers are just battling for 9 wins. So there you go right there. So, hate to say it, because I really do think this is our last winnable game before we go to Baltimore. Seahawks take this one, in my opinion. But I think it could be a good game. You are looking at a solid game here. Next, we got the Chargers and the Broncos in Denver, as a couple weeks ago as well, these two teams played each other, and Denver smacked LA around, and they beat them, I think, 24-7. As the Chargers are without Justin Herbert once again, but I will give LA credit. They hung in there really well against the Buffalo Bills, a game in which I thought the Bills were going to win no problem, but they did give the Bills some scares. As I do think the Chargers do need that offensive-minded coach for when Justin Herbert comes back to develop him into being the best QB that he can possibly be. So, I mean, the Chargers, I do think they have that competitive force in them to keep this game somewhat close against the Broncos here. But Denver, they're coming off a very heartbreaking loss to the Patriots where they were getting smacked by them in the fourth quarter. They rallied, tied the game up, and then they folded and allowed New England to beat them. As the Broncos, their playoff hopes just took a big dent, and I really don't know if Denver can make the playoffs now, but you still got to factor in Russell Wilson for, being comeback player of the year. He has my vote for that. He's played very well this year, and I think Sean Payton is going to rally the troops together, and I think he guides Denver to a rebound right here. It's just, I don't trust the Chargers with a backup quarterback, new interim coach, and just playing a pissed off Broncos team that's still looking to make a run for the playoffs. I'm going to go Denver to complete the sweep of the Chargers. This is my rivalry of the week, as it has been watered down a little bit given that Joe Burrow's out for the rest of the season. But still, Jake Browning, when he's not playing the Steelers, has put up some really solid numbers against the AFC, as we got the Bengals and the Chiefs in Kansas City. As for Kansas City, their offense has looked very lethargic over the past month or so, and the Chiefs have lost 5 of their last 8 games, including Christmas Day at home to the Raiders, where they just could not get anything going offensively. And the defense just took a licking despite Kansas City having one of the better defenses this year. So for this matchup right here, I mean, this has been the AFC Championship game for the past couple of seasons, and all the games that these teams have played since 2021 have gone down to the wire, and I literally have no doubt that it's going to be that case again, even if Joe Burrow's not in the equation. Mahomes played terrible, and he was visibly upset, against the Raiders, as was Travis Kelce. The Chiefs' problems with offense continues as their receivers still can't catch passes, and they're dropping passes left and right. Kansas City left about 14 to 21 points off the board against the Raiders, and then they gave them 14 more because of the offensive ineptitude. The Bengals defense has been very disappointing this year. This was a Bengals defense that I thought was going to be in the top 5 this year, honestly, but their defense has been very disappointing this season. Bengals' run game hasn't been any better, as I really think you got to get Joe Mixon and Chase Brown involved in this one for the Bengals. But Kansas City, I mean, the way they plug up the hole as far as their rush defense goes, that's kind of a mismatch in an area of concern right there. So honestly, this is still going to be a really solid game, even though, it's not Burrow and Mahomes once again. But regardless, I think I'm going to go Kansas City on this one. Because, they're like, this team is too good to not win the AFC West. And I think if the Chiefs win, they officially wrap up the division. And I think they're just going to be playing with a lot of anger and animosity in this one, because these two have developed a big rivalry over the course of the last 2 years. And with that added hatred with the Bengals coming in at Arrowhead, with Mike Hilton saying, oh, we're going to Burrowhead last year's AFC Championship game. The Chiefs, I think they snap out of it here, and I think they get the job done over the Bengals, dropping them to 500, and that could probably do it for Cincinnati's playoff hopes. I just think the Chiefs want that division title so badly, as they now have to be satisfied with that because they cannot clinch the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I'm going to go Kansas City to get the job done over the Bengals. And concluding Week 17, we got Sunday Night Football. Check your local listings. As I said, there's no Monday night game this year, or this week rather. Packers and the Vikings in Minnesota. One of my favorite rivalries, personally, is between these two. Anyway, Green Bay got the job done over the Panthers, but they struggled mightily in that game against Carolina, as their defense just continues to underperform over the past couple of weeks. And with Green Bay, I just think that their offense needs to be in sync here. Minnesota's defense has been up and down as well, and their offense has just looked off lately. But as if the season can't get any more depressing enough for the Vikings, with all the injuries they've had and the resilience they've shown, guess what? TJ Hawkinson against Detroit tore his ACL. So, I mean, the Vikings, they can just never catch a break, man. That's the straw that broke the camel's back, in my opinion, for the Vikings, and I just think their season's done. The Vikings did beat Green Bay earlier in the year, but I just don't think Green Bay is going to get swept by these guys, because the Packers, they still want that playoff spot. They're still alive for it, and I think that they're going to do whatever they can to just go to Minnesota, where they do have success in, as history suggests, against the Vikings. I got Green Bay winning this one over the Vikings to keep their playoff hopes alive, and the Vikings, the depressing season may finally come to an end for them as they lose this game. They're eliminated from contention, so give me Green Bay here. That'll do it for my Week 17 picks. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I am Mac checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.